Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for setting us up here. Welcome, Nate. How's it
Thanks for
going?
having me. That's good. How are you?
Yeah, no, really exciting. And Steve, welcome
Yeah,
back.
excited to be back here. Excited to be talking about Power BI and SharePoint today. So, going to be a really interesting topic.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get you two together. This is like blends my world, right? So productivity side, Microsoft List, Power Platform, and then to have experts on both sides of me, this is going to be wild. So as we have a little bit of time here, I mean, so I guess Steve, if you want to just give a little bit of an update, you spent some time even in the Power Platform world over the past weekend. Do you want to just let us know how the event went? And I know that now you're traveling a little bit again, and just give us a preview there.
Yeah, it was great. Went over to the North American Summit, the Dynamics and Power Platform. Really, really good to see people back together again as conferences start opening up, as we're safe to do so in person. So it's great fun. Great to meet everyone, and there's nothing like going to meet people afterwards. So very, very exciting. It was a fantastic time. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, even a shout out to our last presenters, right?
Yeah. We met the Dynamics Hot Dish team down there as well. So it was if you haven't seen them, check out Power BI Tips YouTube channel. They presented a few weeks ago. So awesome to run into them.
That's awesome. And Nate, do you have any plans? Do you have any events that you've signed up for recently? Anything that's going on in your world as far as possibly jumping back into in-person events?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think the first one I have officially so far is the Cloud 365 Solutions Day, which is all virtual actually. But looking forward to that in December, where I'll be, I think I'm doing something with Power Platform again somehow. So it seems to be the heavier topic these days, but also hoping to get into the rebranded SharePoint Fest. It's M365 EduCon now. So submitted a few sessions there, got my fingers crossed to get in for that. But yeah, I'm feeling more comfortable traveling and getting back out there, back to the old ways.
Cool. That's really exciting. Yeah, and I haven't even left the house yet. No, I'm just kidding. But I do plan on attending some events. Steve and I have some things in the mix, and Nate, I know that we've been virtual buddies for some time, so hopefully we get together and find something that'll work. But let's kick off here and let's dive right into the event here. So Power BI intro to new visualized lists for SharePoint lists. So this is going to be where Power BI and the productivity world really meet each other. And I know that Power BI is like this whole world. I mean, it's something that we have full dedication to from Steve and Mike and these other a ton of other people that are out there that are spending their full days on Power BI. So giving us this little easy button, and then where Nate's going to be able to walk us through the intricacies of that. I'm really excited. I'm ready to learn. So with that, our agenda then we're just chit chatting here, and we have about a couple minutes before we jump into the presentation and the demo. We'll do some intros, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions and wrap up, and just Q&A, anything that kind of comes up through the chat. And as things come up, make sure that you guys, if there's anything that you guys have questions on, or during the conversation, you guys have any comments or your experiences, bring those up. Do not forget to add us on the Milwaukee Power Platform user group. That's really where we continue to push out updates and have all our events. Makes it a one-stop shop for everybody, making it really easy for that. Very quick intro on myself. My name is Anthony Escobedo, Power Platform user group out of Milwaukee. Steve and I had started this a while back, so just really excited to be here and talk more about combining these two worlds. I'm also on the SharePoint user group for the Wisconsin group as well, so that's another exciting side of things. Nate was actually just on there as well, and you can find that YouTube video under the SharePoint user group of Wisconsin's YouTube. I'm a technical architect at Concurrency. I've been doing this for some time, and it's just very exciting to see where modern 365 is going. And I guess it's just bringing all these worlds together that felt so far apart before. And again, traveling is key, and I love always kind of bringing that up. Nate and I, we met through Twitter actually, so it's a really funny story. Just reaching out, he's always posting good stuff out there, so make sure that you follow him there. But ultimately, just creating those relationships and traveling virtually. With that, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting, kind of more business, kind of acumen type of conversation on there, but there's the Twitter where I just, kind of blurt random things out. So I have some fun there. And then I have my actual website where, you'll see some more official blogs and just kind of where I keep my things up to date and the events that I do. So take a look at that. And moving on to Steve. May have just, okay, there you go.
Yep. So I'm Steve Campbell. I'm not sure if you can see it down here, but I'm wearing my official Power BI jersey, thanks to the Power BI tips. I picked this up at the conference I was just in over the last week. So I actually live over in the UK at the moment. So I run the Power BI team for Cognizant over there. I'm a data platform MVP in Power BI. And I did used to live over here in the States, and I'm actually in Wisconsin at the moment. So nice to come back.
Where you'd rather be.
Right. So nice to be back. And yeah, that's me. So looking forward to this session talking about Power BI and SharePoint.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Now moving on to Nate.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining. My name is Nate Chamberlain. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and I get to work at Centric Training, teaching people about all things M365 and Power Platform on the regular. So Power Platform is something that I've always been interested in. I got started mostly with Power Automate, actually, just kind of rebuilding SharePoint Designer workflows. So very excited to be speaking more about Power Platform and learning more about it as I go, because as we all know, there's constant updates, constant new features, just like the one we're talking about today. So excited to share that specific one with you. My background before Centric, before I started getting into training full time, ranges across a few different industries, including financial, healthcare, higher ed, all of that. And I got my first MVP award about 3 years ago, I think, for Office Apps and Services. So really excited to be a part of that community and honored to have that on my listing, I guess, for my resume and all that. But yeah, I also blog at natechamberlain.com. If anybody wants to go out there, you can see what kind of stuff I'm up to and also connect to me on all my socials through there as well.
Yeah, definitely follow him on Twitter. I mean, he's very active on there. He's always posting, the latest and greatest on the productivity tools. So that's somebody that's a must follow. All right, so we can move on then. I mean, onto the demo. I could definitely ask you some about your MVP and Office Apps and Services. I spent a lot of time with the business apps folks, but maybe we leave that for an after conversation if there's time at the end.
Yeah, sounds
So
good.
we'll hand it over to you. Yeah, we can hand it over to you, and then we'll have the screen here and where it'll change over to yours, and you can kick it off.
Great, that sounds good. All right. So let's go ahead and move on here. Again, this is the visualize the list feature that you'll find inside of List. That is, of course, the Power BI integration. Now I put for SharePoint lists on there. That's going to be my focus today, but just keep in mind as we're going through this that you could use this on your personal list as well. All right. Yep, so we know who I am, and we'll just get straight into the demo. We're just cruising. All right, so for the demo today, I'm going to be acting as Megan Bowen, who is just a fictional person who works at a company named Contoso Electronics. And right now, Megan's on the Sales and Marketing SharePoint site, just on the general homepage where not a lot of stuff has been done. It looks very generic, right? So kind of a fresh site here, if you will. Now, on the left-hand side, I do have a lot of lists that I could start with, or I could just create my brand new list from here. And before we get too deep into it, I just want to kind of get you thinking as we go through this process about where your data currently lives and maybe whether or not it's in the right location to do something like what we're going to do today. So really what I mean is if you don't already have SharePoint lists on your site and you're considering using a SharePoint list to try out this Power BI feature or something, from your homepage, just click New, click on List. And what I like to do to get going fast is choose this From Excel option. That's going to be the only option that you have that's going to import existing data. So let's say you are working out of Excel right now and you'd love to visualize it using Power BI as you're going to see today. It's really quick and easy to get started with this. Get your list, use the integrate option, and boom, you're done. So if you're looking to get started, even just testing quickly, that's probably what I would do. But in my case, or in Megan's case, I guess, we already have a lot of lists ready to be used. So I'm going to start out with this product list that's on my left-hand navigation. Then let me just zoom in just a little bit here. But at the very top, we've had something like integrate for a while, but it's been evolving and changing over time. Automate's been up there for a while, but it's been a little bit confusing as they've changed things and moved things around a little bit. And in fact, still between lists and libraries, the buttons are a little bit different. That would get you to similar features like workflows. But right now on a list, if you do go to integrate, you're going to see all 3 apps. We've had Power Apps, we've had Power Automate for quite a while now. Power BI is the most recent addition to these 3 integration options. So if you go up to integrate, choose Power BI, and then visualize the list, that's the hardest part. So integrate, Power BI, visualize the list. Right now, the first time you do this, you may have to sign in, so don't worry about that if yours gives you a prompt or something. But once you're signed in, it's going to show you something just like this. Now, to get ahead of a question that comes up pretty frequently right around now, people often wonder, like what kind of licensing is required to be able to do something like this? Well, you do basically just have to have access to a SharePoint site, right, to be able to go in and visualize the list in the first place. And you don't need any additional licensing to get to this point right here. Where you're going to need licensing is going to be if you want to save this report. I know it's kind of a bummer sometimes, but the bright side of it is it's the Power BI Pro license, which is $10 per user per month. So it's a pretty accessible price point. Another bummer, though, when it comes to licensing, which of course I'm sure is everybody's favorite topic, is that if somebody's going to view your report, they also need that license. So anybody who's going to be publishing these reports that we're looking at or consuming them will need that license. So now that we've got our report here, basically all I've done so far is Megan is choose to visualize it. And if I leave this tab, if I close the tab, it's gone. So it's not permanently here yet. But you can see just using my list data, which we get a little preview at down at the bottom here, it's already created some graphics for me. I've got 2 measures going across. I've got my cost per unit with a total of 62 grand, and then I've got my count of product type at 18. Okay, so those are my measures. And then going across, I've got categories. So it pulled out product line, color, last ordered with a very specific date. And you can see, this is nice that it used a little bit of AI and it tried to make something that looks useful. However, I may want to make some changes, right? Because some of this doesn't necessarily make sense. For example, I may not want to break down by color the amount of cost per unit, right? I may want like a pie chart or something a little bit different there. Or maybe I just want to switch the orientation. So to make any changes to this, you can do one of 2 things. You can choose edit in the upper left-hand corner. That's going to let you change your graphics and your visuals and all of that. Or if you don't want to do any heavy lifting, like no reorientations, no pie charts, no recoloring, if you just want to kind of change a few things, you can get by it a little bit just by using the Your Data panel. So it's easier to see sometimes than to hear about. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. But notice already on the right-hand side, there's several boxes that are checked. And these boxes are basically just the columns that are in my SharePoint list. So for example, if I don't want color up there at all, I just uncheck the box. And now notice that color visual from both of those measures going across disappeared. Okay, so I'm not representing color up here. I still have color down below where I'm looking at all the raw data. But now it's not part of my visuals up here. Same with product line, product type. You can see I can clean it up quite a bit just to get to what I want to. But I can't really manipulate much, right? It's just adding and removing. Add a few more.
A quick question as you're moving things around here. Is this when you click the button to like open up your dashboard? Is this something that was automatically created and it showed this way in the beginning?
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of the nice thing is you just click on visualize the list and it does its best job to create something very similar to what you see here.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you'll see pretty soon also that they all kind of look the same. Honestly, like when we go to another list and do it again, you're going to see that it kind of chooses that same format every time, but of course with the new data.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, is that something that you typically see in Power BI? Is it just where you click a couple buttons and it pulls it together for you, kind of the typical dashboard?
Kind of. So when you start with Power BI, actually, you're going to start with the blank canvas. And as soon as you connect to data, like in our case, this product list, if I just started checking boxes, it would start populating on the screen. But what I want to do is really pair it with visuals. So I want to be a little more intentional. But yes, just to kind of quickly answer the question, you could just check the boxes to get stuff on the report. All right. So we'll come right back to that. I just want to show you real quick while we're thinking about it. If I do go to another list, like I've got this Q4 marketing analysis, and do the exact same thing, just integrate Power BI, visualize the list, it's going to create a report for me. There we go. So different data set, same format, or at least it looks like that, right? And I can see I've got 78 different zip codes or unique zip codes that are represented in this data. I've got 100 respondents, basically, is what I'm looking at. And all of this marketing analysis is basically someone received a package and they're opening it and what's the shelf impact. So kind of getting some retail information in a bit. So anyway, that's just another example of a report. And if I go back and forth, you can see it's very similar. Different data, same format. And it works the same. I can uncheck or check boxes to change what I want to see. All right, so let me go, we're gonna edit this report here in just a little bit, but I wanna show you kind of how far we've come first. And just having had used Power BI for quite a while now, I usually use Power BI Desktop. So let me go ahead and open that up here. I'll just kind of show you the old way of doing things real quick.
So as that load, is this something that you can do with, let's say, document libraries as well? Have you ever tried that, or is there a button for that?
Yep, you can't do it in SharePoint, but you could do it from Power BI Desktop. All right, so inside of Power BI Desktop, basically, this is the application that's going to connect up to the Power BI service. You do need the Power BI Pro license, not to build the reports. You can do everything I'm about to do without any license. But once again, just like with the SharePoint reports, if you want to publish these to the service and have other people consume them, that's when you need licensing. You need the license to be able to publish it, and they need the license to be able to consume it.
Ah, interesting. Yes. So even for the out of the box, when you click a button and it showed the report there, you need an add-on license or E5 for that to work?
Yep, yeah, and it is included with E5. So that's good news for those of you that are running in an organization with E5. Power BI Pro is included.
I was really hoping that was just one of those things that they made an exception for. It'd be really cool to see that, where you're able to do that out of the box with these productivity tools, kind of like the free version of Power Apps or Power Automate.
Yeah, hopefully someday. Yeah. So it is a bit of a barrier, especially for those running E3 or any other kind of model. Like it's a considerable cost when you think about it, because it may just be $10 to get started and to start publishing, but for one person to consume it, that's another $10, and chances are you really want a group of people to consume it, so it adds up pretty quick. Mm-hmm. All right, so here inside of Power BI Desktop, what we used to have to do basically is just look for our SharePoint connections, and we have options for a SharePoint online list, which is what I'm looking for, or just a SharePoint list for those of you who are running on SharePoint server. So historically, I would choose the online list, choose connect, and it's going to ask me for the site URL. So this is where sometimes people would get tripped up in trainings and stuff because they'd copy the entire list URL, paste it, and then they're like, oh, that's not going to work, because it'll give them some error message. So instead, what you do is just take out everything after the site name itself, and that's your site URL. And then just choose OK. You don't have to memorize any of this whatsoever. I just want you to see the amount of work that goes into doing it the old way compared to how quick it is now just to get up and running. But from here, now I have to choose the list that I wanted. So let's go with that one we just looked at most recently, the Q4 marketing analysis. And notice right away I have columns that don't make any sense, stuff I've never seen before that wasn't part of that data set. So before I load it, which just means to kind of finalize and put it in my report for usage, I want to transform it. I need to make some changes. So I choose transform. There we go. And then all of these kind of odd columns that you're seeing when you're connecting to SharePoint are basically just things that need to be in the background. So we've got some content type IDs. We've got just generic IDs. We've got authors and creators and modified dates, all kinds of stuff just mixed in here. But in reality, I probably just want to capture, let's see, I think it's just these columns here. So I'm just going to remove everything else, keep those. And something else you may notice while it's working is that it does try to guess the data type sometimes. It doesn't always get it right. So if you do need to make any changes at this point, you would say, okay, well, zip code should be text. We want to make sure that's not a number, so it's not doing averages and sums. You've got different choice fields. All of that looks good to me. Gender, age group, I'm good. But always double check those data types. When you're finished, close and apply. And then we wait patiently. Perfect. All right. So this is where we started before with nothing on there, right? So this is where, to go back to Anthony's question, if I started checking boxes, there we go. Notice it's starting to put stuff on my report. So I've just got kind of a table being built here, but it's not very user-friendly, right? I'd have to manipulate this, probably drag these around a little bit, add some other visuals, but I start from scratch. Okay, now if anybody has specific questions about Power BI Desktop or publishing to the service, we can come back to this. I'm going to leave it open. But I do want to go back to the SharePoint Online list integration. Okay, so that same list back in SharePoint Online here, we saw how quick it was, right? Just integrate Power BI, visualize the list, and then we didn't have to create any of those visuals, right? And we didn't have to say what the data types were. We didn't have to clean up all the background information, didn't have to copy a site URL. We just got up and running so fast. So I'll pause there. Do we have any questions before I get into editing online?
Steve, are you seeing anything out there in comments?
Yeah, no, nothing yet. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to ask on whatever platform you're on. Just post a comment, put it in the chat, and we'll read them.
Hey, Steve, one question that I was kind of, thinking about as we go through the old way versus the new way, and I guess it's when you click a button inside of SharePoint and it, kind of just spins up this report for you. Are you seeing that pop up anywhere else besides in SharePoint? That way that you're just entering into this space without really knowing that you are. You just click a button, it like spins something up. Are you seeing that anywhere else where it's that easy to start to create reports?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not so sure about Power BI. I'm not seeing that integration a lot of places just yet, but we are seeing that kind of behavior more and more where it's getting more accessible for just your average end user to just click something and get running with a new product. Yeah. We're kind of seeing it with Power Apps too, where we can customize the form and then your first edits may just be rearranging some things. But because it's so approachable now, chances are people are going to take that initiative to go the next step. And for Power BI, what that looks like is they're going to click the edit button, right? They're going to look at this. They're going to say, wow, that's really cool, but I just wish I could tweak a few things. And so naturally, we just look around. We try to figure out what's going to allow us to do that. There's a pencil. We click it, and we're off to the races.
So we do have a couple of questions just came in. The first one's actually from Mike, and he's asking back, we were talking about licenses. Mm-hmm. And he's wondering, does this license change if you are premium? Power BI premium licenses versus Pro as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So premium actually includes everything in Pro. So if you've already got premium, you're all set.
And then so the free users then can visit this as well outside of it, because the license is maintained within the premium license.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. As long as they're covered, they should be good there.
And then we do have a second question. Does Power BI remove null values automatically like Tableau?
Ooh, you know what? I haven't tried that in here, but I have had blank values before in a report that's been spun up. For example, if you do create a visual or it creates one for you on something like year, maybe like completion date would be a good example. And if there's something that's incomplete and it's just blank, for that year value, it does actually just say blank, unfortunately. Now, that is something you could filter out, absolutely. So that's something you'll see here in the edit bit where we can add filters and we can take out anything that doesn't really fit our purpose.
Excellent.
Steve, when you see that, Steve, in like Power BI reports, is it typical that, the nulls would be?
Yeah. It'll be standard behavior there as Nate was saying, we can filter them out, or even better yet, we go back to our data source and tidy up our lists.
Yep. All right.
Clean data, right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said clean data, right?
That's right. It's important. All right, well, let's get into editing a little bit. So just to kind of recap where we got to, all we've done so far is we've visited the list. We chose the integrate option, Power BI, and visualize. Now Megan's at the point where she wants to make some changes. So because she does have a Power BI Pro or Premium license, she's able to click on Edit. And it says, hey, it's going to switch to edit mode. It means you're going to lose the summarize pane. So everything we're looking at over there. So I say, yep, that's fine. I click continue. And now you can see I can choose other visualizations. And just like in desktop, I can see all of my fields that I can select from here. And if I just go back and forth, I want you to just kind of look at those two side by side. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So it does look very similar, right? We've even got the filters pane just collapsed here. Make that bigger. But you can see just going back and forth, it feels a lot more like Power BI Desktop now, just a web version of it. First thing I might want to do is click on one of the visuals that it gave me, like design versus content here. And instead of showing it as a horizontal bar, maybe I just want to flip the orientation, show it stacked like that, right? And all I did was select it and choose the visual that I wanted to use. Okay, I'll do it one more time. I'll select a visual, select the alternative layout. Okay, so that's just with bars. It's pretty easy to go back and forth from horizontal to vertical. But you may at some point want to do something with like a pie chart, right? Put a little variety in there, because at first all we're really seeing is a table, a couple numbers, and a lot of bars. So if we want to mix that up a little bit, we might choose a visual and go with a circle. Right, so it just gives a little bit more color, a little bit different feel, breaks it up a little bit, and it's more pleasing to the eye, right? Not so much blue bars everywhere. All right, so then down at the bottom, there may be things that you don't want to include, especially in the raw data output down there. For example, zip code isn't very helpful to me down there, so maybe I just take that out. And just like you saw before, it's as simple as checking a box sometimes. So select the visual, uncheck what you don't want to see. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to rearrange a little bit, and I'm just going to give you kind of an intro to adding visuals. We're kind of in delicate territory right now between highlighting this feature and learning how to use Power BI. So hopefully some of you have already used Power BI a little bit. For those of you who haven't, don't worry about it. These are some simple things we're going to do here, and you don't have to remember it all. You can always reach out after if you need some help or a reminder. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just kind of reposition, make some room on my report so I can add a brand new visual. All you've seen me do so far is change two, completely change another, and take out one column. Nothing too complicated yet. But what I'd like to do, since I do have that zip code data, I want to create a map visual. So when you're working with geolocations, you've got these two options built in right here. We've got the map and the filled map. Okay, so I'm going to use the regular map that looks like a globe icon, and I know that's very small, so bear with me. But there is a globe icon, I promise. And I'm just going to make it fit that available space I just created. So just using the handles in the corner to resize. Now inside of this visual, nothing's been selected, right? This wasn't created automatically for me, so I have to do everything. I've got my new visual, and then you'll see in the visualizations panel, I've got some options here. I've got location, legend, latitude, longitude, so on and so forth. Now my data set doesn't have latitude and longitude, but you can still use the map visual. In my case, I'm using zip code for my location. So I'm just going to drag zip code, one of my columns over here, into the location box. Okay, it's as simple as that. So I drop it there, it does its best, and it plots out all of those zip codes where people were helping out with this marketing analysis. Okay, and with some of these visuals, I'm just using the scroll wheel on my mouse. I can zoom in. Right, that's pretty nice. All right, so we've got our map on there. We've got a pie chart. We've got some bar charts with different orientations. You can see there's a whole bunch of other stuff on here, but something's missing from this data set is dates, which is really important when you want to do like line charts. So I'll leave this one up in case anybody has any questions about anything that I did here, but I am going to switch over to a data set that has date data. So let's see. There we go.
The visual of the world is pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, the map.
Yeah, it makes it really easy to just, digest, like you said, like it's visual. I mean, versus if you were looking at something in SharePoint list, I mean, anybody that's been in the productivity world, I mean, we'll sort it, we'll filter it, we'll group it. But, we don't get the visual like that. So this is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep, tells a different kind of story. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to do our date column here. We've got dates from 2013 and 2014. When I'm first looking at this as Megan, again, I'm kind of overwhelmed, right? I see a lot of blue bars. It's nice that it did all this for me, and it gets me thinking about the data story that I want to tell. But the first thing that I really want to fix, just my OCD, is going in overdrive here. This table down at the bottom with a horizontal scroll bar. Nobody wants that in their life, right? So let's fix that first, and then we're going to add a timeline. So we're going to edit again, just like we just did. Click on edit, say, yep, that's okay to lose the summarize panel. And then first, I'm just going to unselect some unnecessary columns down here. So maybe for this particular table, I don't really need to see, let's see, there's the title field. Maybe I won't go with that. I'll do country product. And let's get rid of a few more. Get rid of discount. Let's do some price ones. There we go. It's looking better. And we don't need month number. So let's get rid of that. And let's go ahead and get rid of date as well. We don't need that specific on this table. Perfect. And then once again, I'm just going to squish it over to make some room. All right. So from here, since I do have date data this time, I can do a few more things. I could, of course, do more bars if I want to, maybe show things year after year. Okay, and in this case, I have 2 years I could work for, so I want to be too long of a range. But I'm going to do a line chart. Whenever I'm thinking about like working over time or seeing changes, I think line charts tell that story well. So I'm just going to click on the line chart icon. It adds it to my report. And once again, I just drag it and resize it to the available space that I have. All right, and just like with the map visual, same thing. When you click on that visual, you have options that you can populate using columns from your data source. So once again, I'm going to look at those and find what it is that I have that matches. So for example, I've got my axis is going to be my dates. So let's drag date over there. And then we're going to do, let's do sales. Actually, let's do our profit. There we go. And since we just have the 2 years, we've got 2013 and 2014, it's doing some math for me. And it just did a total for the entire year. But one nice thing about Power BI, again, those of you who've already used it already know this probably, but those of you who are brand new may not know that just because I created it like this, that's not the end of it, right? You get to choose how granular you want to be with your data. So in this case, it's nice to have that overall year figure, right? But I want to drill down a little bit. So I use these arrows at the top of the visual to get a more specific picture. And now I can see starting in July 2013 and going to October 2014, I've got this trajectory in an upwards direction. It's nice. Okay, and you can go down to the smallest data point in your set. So in my case, that is day. I do have a specific day that I could go down to. There we go. All right, so if I want to go back up, I just use the up arrow. And we're back to just the 2 years. Okay, now something else, you're going to see this with multiple visuals. It's not just the line chart, but you do get the legend option sometimes. So if you want to do a comparison and say, you know, how did a certain product do versus another, or how did a certain geography do versus another, you just drag something into the legend field. So in this case, let's try the country idea. We'll put country in our legend, and now I've got lots of lines, right? Okay, and we can drill down again just the same and see that comparison. Now, personally, just a personal preference here, when I'm working with comparisons like this, I like to use the ribbon chart instead. So just like when I changed the visuals before, I'm going to select the visual that I want to change to a different type, and then I choose the different type. And the ribbon visual, when you hover over it, says ribbon chart. It has these bands of colors that kind of dip and overlap with one another. So I'm going to choose that. And now why I like this is it's stacking the different numbers for those countries. So for example, I can easily see a story here. Germany is orange, and I see that in Q4 of 2013, Germany was on top with the highest profits, right? But on the bottom in Q1 of 2014, that's telling a very clear story for me. And then Germany back at the top, Q2 2014, back at the bottom, Q3 2014, right? So it's very easy to see kind of how things shift and change hierarchy over time.
Germany likes the even numbers.
There we go.
Take breaks on the odd numbers and jump in on the.
That's right.
So we do have a couple of questions from YouTube, if now's a good time to take them.
Yeah, that's great.
So the first one is from Falmi. Any data modeling options here with multiple tables? And obviously this will be available in the desktop version, but is this available going through this method?
Right, yeah, there's not going to be much you can do here. The most you could hope for is using lookup columns in your list so that you can still pull in data from other lists. But this specific feature, the visualize the list, is stuck to that one. So we couldn't necessarily represent two. So for those of you who may not be familiar with what's being asked there, basically, when you're using desktop, you can have multiple data sets that are tied together. So for example, my Q4 marketing analysis is one table in SharePoint. But I could use my, actually we'll just use our recent since we already connected. There we go. And we'll choose a different list. We'll use our product list. And just in the interest of time, I'm just going to load it. I'm not going to edit it or anything. There we go. And then basically from here, what I would do using Power BI Desktop is I would tie these together somehow. So typically one table would have some kind of key that the other one could use. So for example, you might be tying two different tables or two different lists together on something like ID, right? A ticket number could be like a product number, right? Something that the two tables or the two lists have in common. And that way, when you're building out your visuals, you can use data from both tables. And because they're tied together, they could be represented in one visual together, where you're pulling, some pieces of the data story from the first table, and then whatever extra data you needed from that second table, you can now use as well. And it's all connected.
Excellent. And then thanks for that. The next question we have is about where this goes. Does this go to my workspace, or can we save it to a separate workspace?
Yep, so that's a really good question. But basically, this doesn't go to the Power BI service. This stays only in the list itself. So for example, if I were to publish this, which I'll do here in just a little bit, it's going to be accessible through the same place where I created it from. I'll go to Integrate, I'll choose Power BI, and then I'll see the name of my report. However, it doesn't go to Power BI service. So if you just go out to app.powerbi.com, or if you use the app launcher and choose Power BI, you're not going to find it there. So to answer the question, it doesn't go to a workspace.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting UI, especially if you dip in between, Power BI and, SharePoint list. You would typically go to Power BI, the workspaces to be able to view that. So it's housed somewhere inside that list, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, great questions. Any others for now?
We're good for now. Thank you. Let's
All
keep
right.
going. This is very, very exciting.
Sweet. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to finish the process on one of these. I know they're still kind of rough, but we're getting the general idea, right? So let's go find, let's see. Yeah, this one had a little bit more variety. So from here, basically, I'm going to publish this report to the list. Excuse me. So up in the upper right-hand corner, notice I've got my publish option. I choose publish to the list. I need to give it a name. So in this case, let's do marketing report. Right, and by the way, I honestly don't like that naming convention myself. If it is a report and you put report in the title, it's just kind of redundant, right? So maybe it's marketing analysis or marketing Q4 or whatever. So I'll follow my own best practice there. All right, so all I did was publish it. By clicking the publish button, I gave it a name, and now I can see that name at the top, marketing analysis. I can see the data was last updated today. That's good. If it's not up to date, let's say I made some changes and I'm not seeing those reflected here, there is the refresh button in the upper right-hand corner. But just a quick tip, it does auto refresh about every 3 hours. So if you don't see something right away and you just changed it, you may not see it, but go ahead and click that refresh. Hopefully that'll show up for you. It just goes out to the list, gets the latest data, and refreshes the visuals. Or just wait 3 hours and come back and check it again. So basically we've saved it. And if I go back to that list, let's see, this one was the marketing list. So I'll go back there and I go to integrate, go to Power BI, there's my marketing analysis report. So now any other user who's licensed with Pro or Premium can come here, click on the same thing I just did, go to Power BI, and they see the report that I created if they have that license, right? So marketing analysis, they click on it, takes them right to where I was. Awesome. All right, so we've published one report so far. So something else I want to show you real quick. You don't have to just stick with one page. For example, I'm still in edit mode on this report. And even though it creates the one page for you, just to go back, I'll show you, it feels like that's the end of it, right? I can only work with this one piece of real estate, if you will. Now you can publish multiple reports to the same list. You could do one for every year, one for every quarter, do one with different focus areas, like a management view versus, like an end user view, or someone who, like a salesperson's view versus the operations coordinators. Whatever the way is that you divvy up your reports, you could do that, separate reports, or you could add multiple pages to one report. So with that in mind, notice this one's already published. I'm not in edit mode, so I don't see anything about pages. But on one that I am editing currently, one of these tabs, there we go. Notice at the bottom, there's a page 1. Okay, that's kind of my clue that I can add another one. So first, if I'm going to add more than one page, I probably want to rename these to make them clear. So I'm just going to double click where it says page 1, and we'll call this overview. And then we'll create another one, and we'll call this, let's do a profit focus here. Right, so I've got 2 pages on my report. Right. So with the blank canvas here, this is the intimidating blank page that everybody talks about, where you have to decide how is it that I'm going to tell my story, right? Because this time I'm not getting any help. I can copy and paste this stuff from first page to the second page, but what's the point, right? We want to tell a different kind of story. So from here, once again, just like in desktop, I can just start checking boxes. I could choose a visual, whatever I want to do. Something some people have a question about sometimes is page size, and that's especially for those of you working with different devices and whatnot. Before you do anything, or if you just deselect everything, notice there's a paint roller under visualizations. You can choose that and then page size to get that more specific size that you need for your different devices. Or some people just want to cut off the extra space or add a little bit more, right? So you can get down to the pixel by using custom, or just choose one of these others as presets. Okay, so I'll pause there.
Perfect timing. I was gonna say, I really have a huge appreciation for how easy they make it look, from like just an end user perspective. Obviously there's like this whole other world where, people are spending their full days in something like this, but just to spin up, a visualization for a SharePoint list, this looks, amazing. You're really telling a story here, and I appreciate that you keep reiterating that is what you're doing, is trying to tell this story through, the data visualizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's very approachable. I remember when I first started Power BI, how intimidating it felt, mostly like when you're cleaning up your data and all of that, and you don't want to make a mistake with that, of course. But this just makes it so simple. Like, you do still want to be very careful, of course, especially with the stuff they create for you, to make sure that it's not inaccurate or telling the wrong story, perhaps. But it is a great help, and it gives you ideas, gets you started fast. I just really appreciate that easy step one.
Is there any way to really pop out that, hey, this list has, let's say everybody has E5s or something, or they're all licensed for this? Is there any way to say, like, on this list there happens to be a report without having to dig in?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't really tried anything. I imagine you could use a combination, like on a page in SharePoint, where you embed the list and then maybe also a link to the report. So you just kind of create a custom experience outside the list, perhaps.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. All right, so let's go back to our blank page here. And all I'm going to do, just in the interest of time here, is just choose one visual. Or actually, let's do 2 so I can show you one more feature I think we have time for. But I'll choose a table mixed with my ribbon chart. All right, and since we have this whole page now, I'm going to make these large. Table, I'll go ahead and bump down just a little bit there. All right, and for my ribbon, just starting from scratch this time, I'm going to drag my date over to my axis, because that's going to be my dates along the bottom, right? And then we'll do our profit once again as our values. Now, I don't have a legend this time, but I will go ahead and drill down so we can view it by quarter there. Right, now on the left-hand side, why I want to have 2 visuals here to demonstrate this last feature for you. Of course, we could talk all day about Power BI, but I do want to just get you some ideas going. You can give people multiple ways to filter your data. For example, you could use this filters pane if you wanted to. There we go. And when you select a visual, notice it gives you filters on this visual. There's also filters for the whole page. So we created a second page, and we could just have this one page filtered to this year, perhaps, if we wanted to. Filters on all pages, so a global or a universal filter. So we can use that, and our users can use this unless we hide it. Okay, so we don't have to give that to our users. Now, if we do hide that from them, if we don't want them to use that filters pane on this report, chances are we're going to create some other kind of filtering experience. And that's what I want to show you here, is we don't have to have users rely on that. It's a great feature, absolutely. But sometimes you just want them to stay in the report, right, for whatever reason. So we've got some different options here. One of my favorites is just using the intuitive click into a visual kind of thing, where I want to just see quarter 4, right? So I just click on quarter 4 there, and notice how it makes that bold. Everything else kind of goes faded, and any other visuals on the page are going to be filtered by that as well. So let me show you that. If we just add some values to our table here, just random values there, perfect. right? And notice as I'm clicking on these different bars, it's showing me, oh, January, that's quarter 1. It's got all the different date values broken out there, which I don't really like, but you can change that, by the way. There we go. But you can see just by clicking on another visual, I'm filtering everything else on the page. Right, it's really nice. Now, you may want something a little more obvious, especially for your newer users who may not know that they can click into a visual like that. So you might want to use the slicer visual. I use this one in almost all of my reports. So I just add that in there. Then you have to choose, what do you want people to be able to filter on? Okay, well, maybe country, right? So I'll check the box for country. And now my users can just select, oh, I just want to look at Canada's data, right? Just want to look at France. So any questions so far on filtering or interactivity like that? All right.
None on that. We do have one. Just a little here. Does this feature only work with SharePoint list or Excel files online as well?
Yep. So if you want to use Excel, you can use the desktop. That absolutely would connect to Excel. And those files can be in a SharePoint library. That's fine. What we're seeing today, this visualize the list feature that's built into the list, that would pertain only to lists and not libraries, but you could absolutely connect through the desktop.
Excellent, thank you. So maybe one for the future. Hopefully, they're going to add more sources for the lists.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Just select a file inside of SharePoint and say visualize this workbook or something.
All right, thank you.
Of course. All right, so one last thing on this filters and thinking about how we can interact with our report a little bit. You saw how I could click into a filter like this one and just look at Q1 for 2014, and that filtered everything else that's on the page. You may not want that to happen all the time, especially if you're going to do like big numbers on your report. So for example, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. As quickly as I can, we'll put a number up there, we'll do profit. And I want to just double check real quick that it's showing me the sum and nothing else. So that's one thing you should always do, is just make sure if you're doing big numbers like this, that it's averaging, which it might do sometimes in some visuals, but sum is what I want. I want total profit, right? And now let me unselect that. I can see my total profit is 16.89 million. Okay, now when I click in here, what I'd really like, and I'll probably put different labels on here eventually, what I'd really like is for that number to never change, because maybe that's confusing. Maybe my label says like all-time profits, right? And if I click into a specific quarter, maybe I don't really want that to change at all. Maybe I just want certain visuals or certain parts of the page or report to be interactive like that, right? Where I want other parts to be static or permanent. So if that's the case, just look at the very top, and I'm currently selected or clicked inside this profit by year and quarter visual, and there's a visual interactions area. Okay, so if I drop that down, choose edit interactions, now it was really subtle, but you might have noticed a couple icons popped up here. So with profit by year and quarter selected with a box around it, I can choose for this table here. Let me just drag that down a little bit. Oops, there we go. So for this one table, when I'm working inside of the profit by year and quarter visual, I can choose, do I want this to be affected, which is the slicer icon there, or do I want it to stay the same? Okay, so if I choose none, this will not be affected when I click inside profit by year and quarter. Okay, otherwise it will filter. Same with this, same with this. Every single visual on your page can be affected by another. Now, it's kind of a laborious process, because you can imagine I'm only doing this for these two visuals right now, but next I probably want to do it with a table too, right? Click inside the table, say I don't want to affect that number, right? Click inside the other visual, I don't want to affect that number. So you do have to kind of rinse and repeat a little bit, but eventually you get there. And then when you're clicking inside, notice that number doesn't change, right? I've got my permanent figure, even when I'm clicking in these other visuals. All right, so I'll pause there one more time for questions.
Nothing on the YouTube here. I think you've explained everything so well. This is really, really cool so far.
Awesome. All right, so let me, we're gonna kind of leave the report world here a little bit. We'll go ahead and publish this one. We'll call it profit. Whoops, getting sloppy here. There we go. And I want to hop out and just show you, those of you who might be admins, some features that are available to you. Well, one feature specifically that I want to bring up. So we're going to go into our admin center, which I probably could have done that a lot faster. There we go. And in this tenant settings, which by the way is a massive section, there is something way down here. You have to scroll quite a bit. There it is. It's integration with SharePoint and Microsoft List. So if for some reason, when we're thinking about that licensing requirement, if for some reason you don't want people to be able to do what we're talking about today, you can disable it for everybody or for specific groups. So you could say maybe only specific security groups that have Power BI Pro can use it. That makes sense, right? So you could do that through the admin center. Otherwise, it is enabled by default, so everybody can at least visualize their data, and that may be helpful for some people, right? Just to be able to visualize it and tweak it a little bit using just the checkboxes. They can't click the edit button, but that may still be a valuable feature. So something to consider. I don't have a specific recommendation. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution there, but just being aware that that is an available setting for you. All right, I do have a few last slides here. Just some limitations. So I just showed you this integration with SharePoint and Microsoft List piece from the admin center. And then we've talked about the licensing. So remember that you do need Power BI Pro to publish or to consume, or Premium, which includes all the Pro features. Remember that the data refresh is only once every 3 hours. So if somebody goes in there and it's out of date, just remind them to click the refresh icon in the upper right-hand corner. Note that guest users in your tenant can't use this feature. Okay, and of course, as you just saw, your admin can disable that. I do have a bunch of resources. I'll share these in the follow-up. Anthony, do we have a mailer that goes out perhaps, or would these be more like comments?
We can post them. We can post them out in the chats, and we'll post them on the LinkedIn. And definitely come and join our user group, and we'll post them our user group on LinkedIn, and we'll post them there as well.
Perfect. All right, yeah, so there's a bunch of good stuff here. I'll just kind of talk through them real quick. But what I just did today is all detailed on create a report quickly from a SharePoint list. So you can learn how to do that step by step. If you are the admin, check out the Power BI admin portal documentation. This goes through every single setting, and you saw there's a ton of them. But it'll help you out quite a bit just understanding what things do and what you can and can't control. If you're brand new to Power BI, or if you're just trying to learn more, maybe you're going to be an admin or want to be, there's a ton of courses out there. So you can go out to Microsoft Learn, start any kind of pathway that you're interested in with this third resource. And then, of course, since things change all the time, every single month for Power BI, you might want to check the roadmap, see what kind of features are rolling out. So there's a link for that. Their YouTube channel's pretty up to date, so you can always go out there, check out ideas and announcements. They just posted one, I want to say, in the last week with October new features, so it's kind of exciting. And then for those of you with questions about the Pro versus Premium, that's all detailed in this last one, pricing and product comparison. So with that, that's the presentation. I will take any final questions we have there and hand it back over to our host.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I know there's been a lot of chat, and I know Mike's been answering some questions in the chat here. I kind of want to point out, this is a very easy, quick visualizer list in SharePoint. A lot of people are asking extra functionality, and that's definitely all possible once you connect to desktop. But this is such an awesome feature that, if you just want a nice, simple report, which is still very customizable. I mean, I saw you do it in a few seconds. It might take us a bit longer for the first time, but that was, within a couple of minutes, you can get that up and visualize. So a really fantastic demo. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Anthony, I think you're
where? Can you hear me okay?
We can now.
Now we can.
Okay. Just must be something going on with my mic here. But one of the questions that I was thinking about as this is where have you seen some use cases as you're, you have a list, you're storing information out there, and then you want to make it visual, which pretty much anytime you have a list, if you were licensed for it, I could see that, the easy button, you just click visualize this. But where have you seen that become successful once deploying a report?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, it's all about making sure people have the right information to make decisions, because it's nice to be able to look at, right? But we typically want those data stories to lead us in a certain direction, right? Whether it's improving an offering or creating a new product or meeting a need or addressing anything that's lacking, truly endless. So how I've personally used these have been in a lot of IT scenarios, just because that's a lot of my background, where we might have a SharePoint list that's somehow connected with our ticketing system, where we can, monitor the priority of tickets that are coming in and put those up on a TV screen in the main IT room for everybody to be able to see and hopefully help out with. We've also used it for like incidents before. So in a healthcare setting, we had like a slips and falls kind of dashboard where those would all be entered in a form, like using Power Apps or something. Those go into a SharePoint list, of course, and then we could visualize that, where people could say, oh, we had this many slips and falls, we had these many injuries, whatever the other categories are. It's been a while. But really just kind of a response mechanism, right? Any kind of data that we're getting in that could be urgent, let's get it in front of people so we can all kind of track that together.
I just love the fact that we can package this up and it's all in one space. You don't have to navigate over to Power BI, like the world of Power BI. You don't have to really leave where you are, and you're just opening that up. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts about this is the world that you live in and the productivity side of things, it's just a button and it's right there. It's so easy to use. And that's where they're going to see some adoption in that. And I look forward to that happening.
Right. Yeah. And something, along that line is just that you don't have to install an application. I think that's amazing. Because you can get Power BI Desktop, and you totally should if you want to do some more complicated models with tables tied together and all of that. But just the idea that you can do all the same visuals and filters and interactivity and create really dynamic dashboards and reports, all from just your browser. That's just incredible. So especially for those of you who don't have the permission to install on your machine.
Even from me, I'm a big Power BI guy. I'm in desktop all the time making complex reports, but the time saved when sometimes all you need is just what they give you on this page, and to be able to get that so quickly in quite a nicely laid out report there with a quick couple of customizations, that speed and just being able to visualize and understand your data is really powerful. Even for the most seasoned Power BI experts, this is still a huge feature in my mind.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I relate it a lot when you go back to you just building something in with a Canvas app. You can click on the button to spin up a Canvas app inside of a SharePoint list or a document library. You're clicking a button, it kind of gives you this default face, and then you can modify from there. It's just really simple, and we're seeing all these worlds kind of come together and meet in the middle. And a lot of it, SharePoint has been around for forever, and now we're seeing it just become this framework where everything kind of attaches itself in different ways to it. So I'm still relying on SharePoint quite a bit, just like Teams relies on SharePoint and groups and such. Power BI is now kind of playing a piece with that. Power Apps has played a piece with that for a long time. We saw InfoPath kind of go away, and workflow designers and such, and where it's just now a click of a button to spin up a Power Automate or Power Apps. The same thing here with Power BI. It's really exciting to again just see that integration amongst those and how simple it is. So this is I see all these things happen, and it's mind blowing. And especially as you start to see end users pick this up. So Nate, as you're training people, I'm sure that you come back a week or a month or whatever it is later, and then they have built out something you didn't even realize was possible. It's just that easy that end users are able to pick these things up.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I will take this and really appreciate it. It's posted on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and all those fun areas. So again, Nate, thank you very much. A couple of the upcoming events here that are happening. So Nate, you crushed it with this integration, and we're very excited to have you on here and hopefully have you back here in the next couple months. It's always great to get somebody that just really understands this side of things and can bring that to somebody and make it very easy to pick up. I think that's probably the hardest thing with the Power Platform. It feels so deep and so technical at first until you get somebody to walk through those.
Yep,
with
absolutely.
that, we have a couple of events coming up. Oh, no problem. Yeah. With that, we have Matt Fleming. That's going to be next week, same time, same place. So very excited to have him. He's going to be talking through some governance and best practices. And then beyond that, we have Anton Robbins, who's actually going to be talking about SharePoint as well with Power Apps. So very exciting stuff. Again, thank you everybody for the time, and we look forward to having you guys back. Don't forget to add us on the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group in LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Yep. Thanks, everyone.